We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal episode of Star Trek. And this is our very first episode where we talk about the brand new show, which is not brand new anymore, Star Trek Discovery. So today's our first casual and informal discussion about Star Trek Discovery. I'm joined by my colleague and co-host here, Trekkerprise, Gary. Hello.
Hello. Live long and prosper and welcome. And
Yes.
no, welcome.
Wrong hand.
Thank you for having me.
I thought the Vulcan hello was going to be this, but I was very wrong. It's not. It's not that.
Why
at
we should
all.
say hello to each other in a classic welcome way, and then we'll see the rest.
All right, so this is our first. Now you've been analyzing Star Trek Discovery for quite a while, and I've been it's been very hard, but I've been avoiding watching anyone else's Star Trek Discovery videos because I was hoping to do this a lot earlier, but unfortunately, because of I moved from Seattle to Miami, and so because of that, everything's just been kind of thrown off for me. Life gets in the way sometimes, or gets out of the way sometimes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I'm really happy that we're able to do this today. So I guess we'll get started with our usual format, unless you want to change something up for Star Trek Discovery. Oh, one thing.
It's your show. You can change up whatever you want.
You're right. This is super relevant. If you are just tuning in, this should be very obvious, but we're going to be spoilers, lots and lots of spoilers. We're going to, so don't watch if you don't want spoilers. If you haven't watched this episode,
just stop right here, watch the episode and come back again.
And then come back. Exactly right. So, the Vulcan hello. This is our first Star Trek series in 12 years. It was very exciting. I remember the premiere night, sitting down, and I was fortunate enough to be able to watch it on the big screen, like an actual television, not on a computer screen. So I was very pleased about that, and I have to admit that I had very low expectations going into it, so I was actually pretty pleased about it. So do you want to give this episode summary, or should I give it, or should we both give it, or how should we do it?
Nah, you should give it. I'm not good at episode recaps and summaries.
This is true. Well, the episode. No, you're good at it. Sorry, not this is. You don't like. Wait,
I don't like. Yes.
You don't like to do that. is what I thought I heard you say, which is true. You don't like to, but I always force you to.
Maybe for the next one.
We start off. We're introduced to the newly redesigned Klingons, and the very opening shot is of, I think, some kind of nebula, or a star being,
well, there's a binary star
born. Well, no, but it's like a star in a cloud of swirls, and then it becomes,
oh yeah
it becomes Takuvma's eye.
Oh, sorry.
And just to me,
shut up while I'm doing the summary.
This will already give away some of how I feel, but to me, this is us going through the prime timeline into this other place, which is not the prime timeline.
I like that. I like that.
It's us going down. What it actually is it's us going down the rabbit hole. There's a lot of Alice in Wonderland kind of things sprinkled into the show. So I'm assuming that that's what that is going down the rabbit hole. So yes, Star Trek Discovery, we're following you down the rabbit hole. Anyways, it becomes Takuvma's eyes, and we are introduced, we get our very first glimpse at the newly redesigned Klingons, and we see Takuvma, who's giving a very sort of Klingons first, sounds familiar? America first. Klingons first kind of speech. He reminds me of a very relevant character in our current day. And these Klingons are cheering him on, and they, they're like, yeah, Klingons first. And then he says that anyone who comes with the greeting, we come in peace, will be dealt with in a very brutal way. And later on, we do see that. So then we come right to, we cut from there to the desert planet of the, I was going to say Chrysalians, but it's the Crepusculans. And apparently there's been an accident or an incident with an asteroid that was being mined, which somehow released radiation, and this created some kind of problem, which I'm not 100% sure of, with the water table on the planet, or the water, something happened to it. And so the Captain Georgiou and Michael Burnham, who we're introduced to, are looking for a well, apparently, and they're going to re-energize. They re-energize the well. They're somehow able to use a phaser rifle to blast through the water table, which had somehow been obscured. And we get water, yay! And then we see them walk away, and the Crepusculan character kind of like glances up at, who are those weird Crepusculans, and then goes about drinking water that they probably haven't drank in like weeks and weeks. But Georgiou and Michael seem to be trapped on the planet, which I kind of knew from the trailers that they weren't trapped, because we already know the result of the scene. And hold on, what's that? What's going on over there?
Nothing. Just my pal. Wanted
Just
to
your
be
pal.
in the show. Just my pal. It's not a creature from the planet. You recognize the creature?
No, I actually don't.
Really?
Yeah, what is it?
This is a Star Trek creature.
From the animated series?
Yes.
I knew it. I'm not up on the animated series. I have to watch it, rewatch it. I watched it when I was a kid, but I'm sure there's episodes.
This is a glamour.
It's cool. It's
Primo
cute.
Predator. Sorry, I didn't want to disturb you.
No, you're good. It's casual, and we're casual and informal. It's fine. Anyways, there's a nice little conversation that Burnham and Captain Georgiou have about Burnham having her own command, and then sure enough, it feels like they're lost, and then all of a sudden they come back to the starting point of their footprints, and she's like, "You've led us in a circle," and she's like, "Not quite," and then the Shenzhou appears through the clouds and somehow is able to see this from outer space, which is fine. And there's a lot of things that we have to talk about when we get into our discussion.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, the Shenzhou comes, beams them aboard, and then we're off. And they're off to their next mission, which is to investigate a communications relay that has gone down somehow. Is it a communications relay?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And as they're investigating this, they find an anomaly, very classic Star Trek type thing. They're over at a binary star system, and there's like a debris field and everything. And in that field, they find an anomaly, but it's too close to the stars and too buried in this debris field. And it's also setting off some kind of like jamming signal. So apparently the only way probes wouldn't work. So the only way they can find out what the heck it is to do a actual flyby. So Burnham volunteers, and she puts on a pretty cool looking spacesuit and goes over and checks it out. She's totally amazed by it, so much so that she defies her orders of only doing a flyby, and she decides, I'm going to land on this thing. And when she lands on it, she encounters this very imposing guy in a spacesuit who at first she doesn't know what it is, but then her spacesuit recognizes the iconography of a Klingon. And so then she's like freaked out, and it tries to attack her. She dodges, and then she turns on her thrusters, and somehow she ends up stabbing the Klingon, which I will talk about it more, but there was purple blood, so I was happy about that. I was kind of happy about that. Anyways, this creates a situation where she hurtles off into space. Her helmet's damaged. She might not survive, and then of course she does survive. They were able to beam her aboard, but her cells started to unravel from the radiation. So she's in a very cool Enterprise era looking medical sick bay, and she's being regenerated. It's kind of Enterprise era looking.
Yeah.
Anyways, she's being regenerated, and she interrupts the regeneration process after having a vision of her childhood. And then she goes to the bridge, and she's like, what the heck are you people doing? Haven't the Klingons contacted you? And they're like, Klingons? They have no idea you've been in, repair or whatever. And so then she asks the captain to trust her, and the captain does. So they go to red alert, and they pretend like they target their weapons on the strange device that was there. And all of a sudden, wait, is that when? Oh yeah, That's not what happens yet, is it? Oh no, I can remember. No, yes, yeah, so they target their device, and then this gigantic Klingon ship decloaks. No, or does the Kalis beacon go off first? Do you remember?
The beacon goes off first. No, hang on. Hang on. No. I don't remember now. Gosh,
Hold
this
on.
is really bad.
I have it in my notes. I will tell you right now. This is kind of important. We have to get this right. Okay, I don't remember. But anyway,
the ship decloaks first, and then the beacon gets. Yeah.
So the ship decloaks.
Just went into the episode.
You can watch it like while we're talking.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, that's cool. You guys must have really fast internet over there in the
UK. Let's go with that.
So anyways, the ship decloaks. Oh yeah, that's right. They're trying to communicate with it, but it's radio silence. And then then that's when Burnham goes back to finish her repair session. Later on, she comes back to the bridge. Saru has analyzed the Klingon ship that decloaked, and they find out that there's hundreds and hundreds of sarcophagus or coffins all over the ship, with bodies that are fresh all the way up to thousands of years old. And they're trying to figure out everything that's going on. And then all of a sudden, that's when the beacon is lit, the beacon of Kalis, and it's apparently brighter than these two binary stars. And it creates this huge, awful sound. And even when you mute it, the hull of the ship is vibrating sympathetically to it. Anyways, so that happens. And then everything's white in the background. So the crew's freaking out, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Still no communication from the Klingon ship. And Michael Burnham is pretty much at this point, she's pretty, the beacon's gone off, and she's kind of really, really getting nervous and worried. So she has to be excused from the bridge, and she goes and she has a conversation with Sarek, and she asks Sarek what did the Vulcans, and how when the Vulcans first encountered the Klingons, they were immediately destroyed. So on their next encounter, they decided to fire first. And after that, the Klingon, before the treaty was reached with them, Klingons respected that because the Vulcans, spoke to them in a language that they could understand. So Burnham tries very hard to convince the captain to do the same thing and to fire first, but the captain is very Starfleet, I'm very happy to see, and she's like, nope, Starfleet does not fire first. And so Burnham gets a little out of hand, and Captain Giorgio has to call her into her ready room, at which point Burnham then does something really crazy and knocks the captain out and attempts to fire on the Klingons anyways. Which is totally nuts. I was actually pretty impressed at the writing at this point, because I was like, whoa, she's crazy. And so she almost gets away with it. But then the captain I guess she, being a human, she didn't administer the Vulcan neck pinch as well as a Vulcan could have, because the captain isn't knocked out for too long. And at that point, she comes to the bridge and yes, she comes to the bridge, and she's about to have, she's basically holding the gun up to Burnham, and, accuses her of mutiny. And that's when the Klingon fleet of ships, about 24 of them, appear. And Burnham's still trying to convince Captain Giorgio that, the most prudent action would be to fire first, even though at this point, if they had, I believe they would have been totally obliterated by the rest of the fleet. But still, Burnham's convinced that this is the only way to do it. So Captain Giorgio sadly has to put her in the brig, and that's where the first episode, The Vulcan Hello, ends. And then, since we're going to go ahead and talk about the second episode, Battle of the Binary Stars, we'll just go ahead and continue at this point. Where it begins is with the rest, I guess, the they put her in the brig, and then the Federation fleet arrives finally. And at that point, Tukuvma, who's having a conversation with his fellow Klingon house leaders. Yep. So, convinces them that this is the time for war. So he orders to fire first, and then a beautiful long battle ensues where we have a lot of carnage and a lot of like cool moments occur. And then it ends, unfortunately, with like I said, massive destruction. But then it ends beautifully because they come up with a wonderful plan concocted somewhat by Saru and finished up with Georgiou. They're originally going to have a repair pod go out with a torpedo head to the Klingon ship. Oh, wait, sorry. Before we get to that, for some reason, Tukuvma tells all the other houses, get the heck out of here. And he stays behind to collect the dead, because that's what he likes to do. That's what his house seems to be all about. They're like the funeral home or caretaker house of the Klingons. And so
I never thought about that.
So on the, it must be, right? The Undertaker is what I meant. Anyways, Captain Georgiou is originally going to initiate a plan to fly a repair pod into the ship, but then she's having a conversation with Michael Burnham, who escapes very cleverly from the brig by reasoning with the computer, and and then they realize when the Klingons are starting to tractor beam the dead up, that instead they could beam the warhead onto one of the dead Klingon soldiers, and they do that, and it wonderfully buys them a little bit of time, so that just a la J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 2009, it buys them a little bit of time so that the rest of the crew can take escape pods and go. But that's not what they do. They actually, Giorgio and Michael decide to try to kidnap Tukuvma. So they beam aboard the bridge, and unfortunately, their plans are foiled because there's lots of Klingons on the ship, and there's only 2 of them. And I'm surprised they didn't take a bigger away team, but that's okay. Hey, whatever. And so then, sadly, very sadly, because I actually love her character, Captain Georgiou gets killed.
Yes.
Michael Burnham has to then, instead of capturing Tukuvma, she ends up killing him, thus sending them into full-scale war. She and the rest of the Shanzhou crew escape. Oh yeah, sorry. That's a long.
Wow.
Sorry, it's like my longest introduction. So Saru beams Burnham back, and not the body of Captain Georgiou, unfortunately. And later on, we'll find out that that's very sad, even more sad. But so finally, the Shanzhou crew escape. Use their escape pods to leave, and the episode ends with a court-martial trial in which the shadowy admirals or figures, we don't see their faces for some reason, sentence her to life in prison, and that's it. The episode ends. Did I get it all?
Yes, you have. You did.
All right, so okay, I guess now we can dive right into it. What did you think of the 2 episodes, the openers?
Well, I remember watching the first episode, obviously, in space when I was in Canada that time. So we watched the premiere with Sean, my other friend, and we've been caught with too many.
Who is Trek on the Tube?
Who is Trek on the Tube? Yes. So a little bit of a free commercial for him as well. So we watched the episode together, and I think we had to watch it again to get the full thing, because the problem with space and with TV, they got too much commercials in it, so it wasn't really the best experience. And I remember him asking me after watching the first episode, like, you're really quiet, and I was like, well, yes, because I'm still thinking what to say. I really had a tough time at the really beginning to watch and actually form an opinion about the whole episode, the whole pilot, because some people used to say they convince like, okay, the first two is like a prologue, and it's the third episode is the second pilot, which I don't really see that way. I mean, I think it's just a pilot, and then we cut off with the story 6 months later. That's like episode 2 or something.
Also, I don't think there's really any pilots anymore on TV. Pilots used to come out to try to see what the pilot episode used to be like. Oh, we're gonna put this episode out to see what people think, and then if it's good, we'll keep producing the show. If it's not that great, we'll have to go back and redo it. Like, so I don't think there's really been a pilot episode since The Cage.
True. Very
true. So I wish I guess we can just call it what it is. It's the beginning. It's the first episode.
Yeah, it's the beginning, exactly. And even if it's a two-parter, but it's still the same. I mean, I don't really understand why they did a separate title for the 2 episode, because there's the same episode, just like Best of Both Worlds. You won't give that 2 title like the Encounter of the Borg and the Capture of Picard or something, episode part or whatever. It's just I don't know. But apart from that, I really had I had to I had to actually sleep and think overnight to what to say, but it's not as bad and negative as I thought I would be. I mean, I was quite, well, not quite, but I was negative about the whole project at the beginning. I have to admit that. I'm pretty sure you remember my the reaction that we did just right after the second trailer, like a couple of months back, and I was like, I was outraged. I wasn't outraged on the episode itself, and I'm actually getting more and more attached to the series, seeing the following episodes, and I have I'm seeing the possibilities and the chance in Discovery, definitely.
I think that for me, I feel a lot of the same things that you do. Discovery really turns what you expect about Star Trek on its head. It's like, everything that we see is completely it just doesn't, like, visually and in terms of like production wise, like a lot can happen in 10 years. I get that, but Discovery kind of takes you visually into this whole other aesthetic that doesn't seem to fit any. It's not like Enterprise era necessarily. It's not J.J. Abrams universe, although there's a lot of J.J. Abrams universe kind of stuff going on. And it's definitely doesn't look like TOS or what you would think 10 years before TOS is. So I feel like there's 2 things about Discovery. One, I agree with you. I'm kind of attached to the acting and the characters. They're all very cool and very interesting and intriguing. So I'm definitely following the show for that. But the more and more, the problem where I have the place where I have the main problems are in the production. The show does seem like it's like rushed and not fully thought out, and definitely the production side of it, like the design and things like that, also seem really rushed. We don't really see the ships for too long. All the CG is like flash, like it's like you don't really get like a really good shot of anything to like really admire it or see how.
Yeah, like in TNG, like you saw the Enterprise like flyby, and even the flyby was like a beautiful shot, a beautiful full scale shot, and now you don't really have that. Just
yeah, everything's just kind of like thrown at you really quickly, and there's not really a lot of detail or that you can really see. But that being said, so far the writing is intriguing. It's not the strongest writing. Like, for example, there are moments where it's like really genius, and then there are other moments where you're like, "What? I don't get why you did that." And of course, the producers are saying, "Hey, stick with us. Everything's for a reason." So I'm gonna go with that.
Absolutely. You have to watch the entire series to form a real firm opinion.
Opinion. But so far, for what I can tell, one of the things I liked, for example, is like in the beginning scene when they're walking on the desert planet. I think Captain Giorgio says something like to Burnham, like, "You're lost," like, and that kind of to me was cool because it's her character is a lost person. Like, they don't fit. She doesn't fit in Starfleet. She doesn't fit with Vulcans. She's not a human. She's not a Vulcan. She's like kind of this like lost character, and it's very evident throughout the episode because she's also lost from the ways of Starfleet. Like there's no previous Starfleet officer that I know of that would insist on firing first. Like it seems like something that they're so committed to, which is the Federation doesn't fire first. We always try to reach a peaceful resolution to things. And so it's pretty cool. I like those kinds of, I like it. I like my protagonist to be someone that I don't necessarily agree with, you know what I mean? Or expect. She's doing things that I don't necessarily expect. And, we'll do a more thorough review of the next two episodes, and a discussion about them. But like we do see later on, there's only been 4 episodes so far, and we do see later on she continues to do things like that even when she ends up on the Discovery. And what I love is her relationship with Saru, who we get introduced to here. We'll see that actually become even more interesting in the next couple of episodes, and I'm enjoying following that as well. But sticking within
the first 2 episodes,
the Vulcan hello. Another thing that I'm looking at my notes because I wrote after the initial viewing, which I just watched without any like thoughts, just kind of like what's going on. Then I went back and I watched it and I took tons of notes. So another thing I wrote down was that the music is beautiful. It's actually really, really well. That's another part of the production that I really like. Yeah, it sounds like you have an opinion.
I'm throwing face because no, I still have a little issue with the music, to be honest. I mean,
really,
it's first off, I had a problem at the really beginning, like when the Shenzhou went down to the planet, and they had this classic theme tune popping in, and then in the trailer as well. Not the trailer, in the intro, they had the classic theme tune popping in too, and then that sort of kind of interesting expanse sort of intro titles, music, and the whole, I don't know, it just didn't give me that sort of a feeling that I've got from that previous Star Trek series. I mean, I'm a big advocate of listening to Star Trek music, and I have listened to countless times to many of them. Voyager, Enterprise, DS9, and all of them has a certain feeling attached to it. But I can't really attach anything to this sort of music. I don't even notice the music, to be honest, in this series. Not as much as I noticed in the previous shows.
I will give you this. So far, the opening title sequence and the music of the opening titles, as if I had to rank them in all the Star Trek series, Discovery is definitely the last one. And funny enough, even though I haven't really like invested enough in the show, I think Voyager has the most beautiful opening sequence of all the Star Trek series. Like it's one of the most gorgeous, and the music too is like really dun 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 dun. That being said, even though the opening title sequence is very typical,
it's not very Star Trek-y.
It's not very Star Trek-y except for the Star Trek theme. I'm okay with that. It's the Discovery Star Trek. It's Discovery's thing. It's Discovery can own it. I will say though that I did notice the music, and I noticed it especially in the scene where Michael and Captain Giorgio are having their conversation in her ready room at the very end of the Battle of the Binary Stars, and then they notice the tractor beams picking up the troopers. The music gets really exciting at that point, and you hear this like beautiful horn arrangement, and you see like all kinds of, you hear like it gets really like it sounded very Star Trek-y, or at least very Star Trek Discovery to me, and I really
I'm intrigued.
Are you going to that scene right now?
Yeah.
Pump up the volume. Let's see if we can hear it, because it's really pretty music.
Hang on.
If not, I'll have to pull up my CBS All Access, which I have quite a few things to say.
Well, I don't know. Can I do that? I mean, this is allowed? Are we gonna get blocked?
I think it's okay if you just like have it playing in the background, not on the screen.
That's fine. I just don't know how to do that. So
here, I'll try to do it. Meanwhile, Gary.
Yeah, but
let me see if I can pull up.
Okay. No, that's okay.
Do I even have it on my phone? I have quite a few things to say about CBS All Access.
No. Okay, no, sorry. I just got this disrupted with this music. So no. In this case, yes, the first episode, in that particular scene, I do. Actually, hang on, I can put it on my phone too.
Hold on, I've got it for you. Hold on. All right, we're gonna have to rewind it a little bit though. But anyways, it's the Discovery theme, or the show's theme. I guess it's Michael's theme actually, that's playing in that part. Oh geez, this is what's happening on my.
Oh, hang on, I have Netflix in here. So
oh, you're so lucky. I hate that you have Netflix. What phone do you have, by the way?
I have
an
Samsung.
Android. Is it Samsung?
Yes.
Android device. That's trippy.
There you go.
An ego I had.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, totally.
Thinking I could take away the shell the Vulcans put around you.
That's such a
I
sad
was so
scene.
sure I could do it. Even convinced that you were ready.
I think it's gonna happen now.
Let me deliver the warheads in your place.
See, I mean, I already feel like the music's really good right there, but watch.
Yeah, it's getting there.
They're gathering their dead.
Yeah. Okay, that's to admit that's good.
Forget the Vulcan camp. Let's pull up the transporters now and have engineering meet us there with a torpedo
I'm even getting
warhead.
goosebumps off of this lo-fi.
I know how to take it.
Okay.
So that's,
okay, I'll admit.
So
This bit is hilarious. It's good.
it's good. It's good. Jeff Russo is the composer, so I feel like he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So far. Again, not necessarily. I think part of it is that, like, you know, the producers of the show really want us to, even the Star Trek fans, they just want us to kind of let go of all of our expectations for the show. And I do agree that, like, you know, I think we've come to the point where it's like, okay, you know, all the things that we're attached to, everything from the production design, the house style, as the Doctor likes to refer to it as, all that is out the window. That being said, you know, it that's fine. Okay, I get it. At least make it cooler than the previous house styles. Like, you could actually go, you know, you could actually do that. And that's the problem I have with it, is that, like, the warbirds, for example, the not the warbirds, but the bird of preys, which come up in this episode, they don't look anything like what you would even imagine a bird of prey would look like. Plus, they don't even look like they could fly correctly. Like, they're kind of positioned in a strange way, and they look like they look like bird of preys, but that have like humpbacks or something like that. Maybe they're humpback
kind of
whales,
the whole design of those bird of prey actually reminds me of the not Asgard, the Goa'uld ships from Stargate.
Hey, yeah, okay, so that or like originally I thought maybe they look like Cylon Raiders from Battlestar, which, going back to, I think the show definitely is inspired by or borrows a lot from Battlestar Galactica, because none of the other thing is, like, the engine designs, like, for example, on the ships, they're all kind of different, and I thought that was interesting too. Like, the Europa has a very different looking nacelle design. There's no more, it doesn't seem like standardization is important in Starfleet at this point, which is odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the previous ship, the later incarnations of the ships, from the point of Discovery, everything has the same sort of a design structure. Even if you go into the Kelvin universe, these nacelles are the same in every freaking ship.
Right. Which makes sense.
In every ship. It makes sense, exactly.
So there's a lot of things like that. Let's see. Well, what did you in the Vulcan Hello and the Binary Stars, Battle of the Binary Stars? What we can go on about what we disliked, but what did you love? Was there a moment in either of those 2 episodes where you were just like, oh, okay, Star Trek, like I really love this, like even if it was after, if your analysis came later, not initially watching it, but is there something that you've come to love?
When I initially watched it, I did, and I still love those bits on the bridge, on the Shenzhou bridge, with the balance between Saru and Michael Burnham and Captain Giorgio. I think Captain Giorgio she's a brilliant character. I'm just kind of sad they killed her in the second episode.
I know,
Why?
it's such a shame.
Why? Come on, it's not. I guess that's needed to be for the whole sake of the show and for a different setup to have Captain Lorca as a more dominant war captain, not the diplomat who actually won't be able to solve the problem. Maybe just with diplomacy, not Captain Lorca who will fire first without any thinking or so. But I do love those little moments on the bridge, and that for me that felt really Star Trek. Even when they've been stargazing the distortion, and they try to figure out what is it in this field, what sort of ship or power or phenomenon can that be, and that little chit chat between them, just that really felt like it's okay. It's something that Kirk, Bones, and Spock would have, or
it was a very
any super Star Trek-y feel and scene. What that whole character.
There were quite a few moments like that, which give me hope for the show, because another moment was when we had the flashback where Burnham arrives on the Shenzhou for the first time, and that's when we find out that the Shenzhou, the transporters, we get the explanation for why they look so weird, because it's some kind of lateral beam.
The old design.
Yeah, it's an old design, which I'm cool with that. I like that.
I can accept that too.
Yeah, but I like when she walks onto the bridge and you hear the very familiar TOS sounds. Obviously they sound a little more remastered or
oh yes,
spatially 3-dimensional. But I love that scene too. I do think there is hope to see Captain Giorgio again, because I think that the show has an opportunity with flashbacks to bring her.
Yeah, absolutely. I do hope we're gonna see her again, because really I don't know. It just makes my day if I see her in Star Trek Discovery.
See, Michelle Yeoh is such an awesome actress, and like she is very cinematic. It does bring like a cinematic vibe to the episodes. Which I think that the whole thing, actually, to give credit to the production team, does have at times a very cinematic vibe. Now, again, this is where it's like, and this can be fixed later on. I mean, like, because it is CG, so you can go back and upgrade the CG effects. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just because the show supposedly has like a very high production cost, and yet CBS All Access only offers up to a 1080p stream, and it's not always really great. So it seems like whenever there's a special effect, it looks kind of rushed, and then B, it kind of looks like unfinished somehow. And so that's one of my biggest gripes about it, is that you have these beautiful sets that they built, and like the cinematography is really nice, and like all that stuff, and the computer generated effects don't really complement the film scenes as much as they could. Now, some of the other effects, like the brig shielding and things like that looked all really good, but that's very basic and easy to do type of stuff,
Yeah.
You made a comment just a bit ago about Captain Lorca being like the blazing saddles, poo poo poo, shoot him up first, and I think that's very true. Yeah. We'll talk about it more in his episode
3 or 4.
But I have a feeling that Captain Lorca is a little bit, he's one of these people that is probably like reacting to the war itself. Like I wonder what he would have been like as a peacetime captain. I'd be very curious, because Discovery's a science vessel, and my assumption, we'll go into that. But anyways, it'd be interesting to find out. But he's definitely not your typical captain. But that's kind of like, Captain Giorgio. She to me feels like a perfect succession in the line of captains. Like you have kind of like, she's in that same kind of place where you could imagine like a Kirk era / Picard, Starfleet.
I do agree, but I don't agree at the same point, because the one thing that I don't really liked on her character is how she was impatient. She was impatient. She was having a casual chat on the bridge, like, yeah, maybe it's not necessary, but I like it. And then in the next time, Saru just like, oh, the sensors detected some strange reading from that nebula in front of us, and she was like, okay, what's this? And Saru was like, I'm working on it. And it's like, oh, so I just got notification from an interesting reading, and no one can give me an answer. It's like, come on, let the people work.
Oh, I see what you mean, but I think that's a different.
It happened quite a few times.
She did do that. You're right. She has a leader. Like, she was like,
I want everything right now.
But I like it.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Cool.
I think it's devaluing the character for me, but it's just a bit strange for me.
I definitely get that too. Yeah, but I mean, Kirk was like that too. I mean, like, he's like, "Damn it, Scotty, I need those engines now." You know what I mean? Like,
okay, but hang on.
Like, if you really need it,
like, heading towards C2000. Well, obviously, Scotty had to do something.
I think the scene you're referring to, though, is the one where Burnham is floating aimlessly through space. That's one of the scenes, anyways, where she's impatient with Saru or someone, where she's just like, he's like, I get no readings at all, or something like that. And then she's like, she snaps at him, and she's like, well, you better get them, or something like that. I forget the details.
But I'm pretty sure you remember the scene when Michael and Saru had this little conflict. Like, Michael started to read everything from the screen, and Saru was like taking over, like, as a science officer, I can do more than just reading the screen. I think that was really
Captain. Cool. I think Captain Georgiou, though, does represent like a balance between Saru and Michael, because if you notice, Michael's kind of snippy at Saru as well. She's very like, well, if you would stop speculating and give me an actual fact based on your data, and she kind of puts him down in front of the rest of the bridge crew, which Captain Georgiou doesn't do. And I felt like really kind of like, hey, Michael, and you could see why Saru has some hard feelings toward Michael, because it's the little things, it's not just the fact that, yes, she is brilliant. She's a genius. She's like a very gifted officer, but she's also kind of careless in a lot of ways. And we definitely see that about her character. And so I think it's interesting that our main character isn't someone that you necessarily would want to be like, but more like, very flawed in a way, and like, her heart's definitely in the right place. I will say that. And then, again, we see more and more of this. But a question I'll have for you that I'll ask you now, but I might not want your answer until we get to the review for the next 2 episodes. But do you already see a growth from Shanzhou era Burnham to Discovery era Burnham? Like, is there, 6 months later, it's not that long, but
you only see the character like 4 episodes. So.
4 episodes. So we'll, I guess we can explore that character and see.
I think it's in this case, it's a bit early to say anything about character development. Because you're still like getting to know
at this point.
Itself.
Yes, you're absolutely right. At this point, you're absolutely right. But I'm curious, because like I am starting.
No, it's funny because I don't really want to take the time on this, but with the Orville, I can see the character development already.
I can see that you brought the Orville into the I know. Come on, just leave the Orville alone. It's another show.
I know. But on that, I've only seen 6 episodes or 5, but I can see the character development on that. If we're gonna see like 2 more episodes in Discovery, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna say something like that.
Since you brought it up, I am also enjoying the Orville. I have been watching the series, and I watched both of the shows with my mom. By the way, I saw the first 2 episodes with my father in a subsequent, like I watched it like a lot of times because I'm like trying to like analyze everything I can. Mm-hmm. But my father made no comments throughout the whole 2 hours of the first 2 episodes, except for at the very end. He said, those uniforms are ugly. He did not like the uniforms. What do you think of the uniforms?
Well, it's nothing that we've seen before. I remember Michael Fuller, Brian Fuller, Brian Fuller said it's going to be a different sort of uniform, but the initial design that they released for it was very like Cage era and TOS era combination. So it was really Star Trek-y as a design that we got introduced to. But I don't know, it kind of looks cool, but I could imagine that as a future uniform between the 25th and 31st century, not in 10 years before Kirk and Spock.
Well, the whole show, I would have like the whole show would go up much higher in my esteem if it took place after Voyager.
Absolutely.
Or after Nemesis, whatever. Just
give it 100 years and
not even
100 years in the future
20.
or 50 or whatever. No, 100 years would be a big time difference because the Klingon would have the time to change.
It's true.
But then that would be sort of a different setup as well. So they could have actually tied up with Star Trek Online, which is an online MMORPG game. I'm pretty sure you heard of it.
Which I can't play because I have a Mac.
Well, I can't play because I don't know how to play with it. But yeah, they could have done something with that. But I know we all bragged about this whole timeline issue and why didn't they put it in the future or something. But it's there. It's, as they used to say for the very beginning, the Enterprise theme song, because no one really liked the Russell Watson.
Been a long time.
Yeah, Fate to the Heart or something, and which it grew on me ever since.
And my time is finally here.
So you see, as that became ours, Discovery will become ours as well. So it's fine.
I could see I may not like the uniforms, but taking place 10 years before Star Trek, I could see how the uniforms could change, and like they could slowly, as Discovery gets closer to the original series era, they can update the uniforms, and I don't mind. I think it's better that you have a metal. By the way, can we see your metal, your little pin that you have on your Sherlock Holmes style deerstalker hat?
It's elementary, my friend.
Very cool. So you chose science division there, is that right?
Well, this is a present that I got from a friend.
Very nice. What rank are you? There's no pips on it.
There's no pips on it, but I think all the QMX ones actually came out without rank pips, so
okay,
you can be anything.
I'm waiting for the Admiral one.
Oh,
to come out. That's the one I really want. So hopefully QMX will.
You're gonna hate me for this, but I'm waiting for my blue Admiral. No, I'm waiting for my blue Command Orville uniform.
Oh, anyways, but I could see how, since if you look from, I didn't realize this, but from the original series to Star Trek the Motion Picture, it's only like 3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So look at the dramatic change in just 3 years, and then from Star Trek the Motion Picture to Star Trek 2, look at the dramatic change in uniform. So I could sort of rationalize that these uniforms are the current uniforms, and in 10 years it'll be the original series era.
Yeah, I mean, if you think logically, and I'm not talking about us, it's for everyone basically. If you think about logically, big retail companies change their design and their image just like this in a matter of time. Just 1 month, and you have a whole bunch of new uniforms. You have a whole new bunch of store design or something. I'm sure they can do the same thing in the future. Within a so small period of time, so those ships might end up look like exactly in the original series, and we're gonna end up having starships like this, because why not? There you go, beautiful.
So, okay, so but the thing is that see the nacelle design on the Constitution class that you just had up there.
Yeah,
which I'm assuming it's the Enterprise, right?
Well, this is the Yorktown.
Oh, it is? Is it the Yorktown? Oh, did you just drop your Yorktown?
No, that's fine. This is the Yorktown. Okay. This is the SS really? Yorktown.
Let me see.
NCC 1717.
Oh, very nice. Okay,
this is a special edition from Eagle Moss.
Eagle Moss, it's beautiful. Can we get a closer? Don't move as fast as you're moving just as fast as Star Trek Discovery.
There you go.
Star Trek Discovery. It's like this.
So this is the Eagle Moss Yorktown US SS Yorktown, not even USS. So it's probably before. It's actually interesting. Probably before the Federation or something.
I don't know, because I've always thought it was weird that it's USS whatever, but I guess it stands for United Starship or something like that. Do you know what the USS stands for?
I think it's United Starship or something, or Spaceship. But I have the Enterprise as well.
Spaceship,
It's Johnny Lightning model, and this is a battle damaged version.
Wow,
It's not really nice in terms of it's a battle damage.
I guess my point is that you have your nacelles that look like the NX era nacelles. Like there's a visual continuity, right?
Hang on a second.
Look at. Do you have the Shanzhou?
I have an NX as well.
Oh, look! See, look at the nacelle.
If you look at the two nacelles, it's not really the difference is not really big difference. I mean,
no, there's not a big difference.
This is more sleek, while this is more detailed, more rough.
Right, and the NX ones look like they're the older versions of the, of that. So it's kind of
I can see that. It's fine.
Which
That's
I
a different
appreciate.
era.
But then you go to the Shenzhou, which is supposedly in between the NX and the Constitution, right? Like it's the Walker class, by the way.
Yeah.
So the Walker class has these like really flat blade style. Which, do you happen to have the Enterprise, the Constitution movie era there by any chance?
The refit? No, I don't have that.
Oh, I have one, but I don't have it here. It's not unpacked yet. But
honestly, if you can't count these, but this is a different universe too.
But there's still a design, like there's still a design element that's similar to the nacelles of this is kind of like a halfway point between round nacelles to going to the blade, the flat blades.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the Shenzhou and all the Shenzhou seems to have this flat, really sleek looking blade design, which actually reminds me of like the Romulan or Klingon nacelle housing design. So it's just kind of weird. It looks cool, but it doesn't fit. And so I know that I'm sure that the guys over at Trek Yards are going to do a much better job than we can about like rationalizing or even nitpicking or even like, they're like super amazing at it. In fact, I'm excited to watch
absolutely
videos at some point, but even just me though, I'm not that deep into the engineering starship designs, but visually it just doesn't seem right. It like something about it just doesn't sit right, and it's like okay, come on, guys.
That's basically the whole show about if you think in one level. So
it's true. There's like that's like a really huge problem for me, and it still hasn't still haven't solved that problem in my head. There is something cool, a personal note about Star Trek Discovery. So the first episode, the Vulcan Hello, takes place, and actually the beginning of this war takes place on May 11th. What year is it? 2256, and it's a Sunday, right? So that's my birthday, Sunday. May 11th. So the Battle of the Binary Stars takes place on my birthday in the year 2256. So that was a nice little surprise and present from the
that's your major Barrett moment.
But exactly. So there I am. I'll always know that my birthday is going to be on the Battle of the Binary Stars. But
how old you will be by that time?
Very old, 300 something years old. But Time Lords, we live for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that it's on a Sunday is kind of a neat thing, because whenever May 11th is on a Sunday, guess what else that means?
I don't know.
It's Mother's Day.
Oh, so you've been a gift.
So I don't know that I was born on a Sunday, but my birthday, when it falls on a Sunday, it's always a Mother's Day. So that means that the Battle of the Binary Stars also takes place on Mother's Day. So
that gives a whole different symbolic system as well to the show if you think about it.
I wonder if that's intentional. Let's see what else. Oh, the Klingon torchbearer. We finally saw the torchbearer on screen, and we only see him for the exact same amount of time that we saw them in the trailer. So there's this like huge attention that they were giving to this awesome outfit or this, kind of design, but you really
Yeah,
only
well, we kind of
really-
see the outfit
it's-
too later on,
it's a
but that's
little-
a different story.
Well, no, that's a different spacesuit.
Is it?
Yeah, because the torchbearer has this
Oh
round.
yeah, that's
sort of-
true.
In fact, it reminded me of those old swimming, like those diving suits from the Victorian, the 1800s, and the like.
I had the connection with the fencing suit, with the fencing
right, or a fencing
helmets.
suit. Yeah, totally. But I mean, which if you remember in Enterprise, Trip has the helmet sitting in his quarters. The diving suit helmet.
I'm actually rolling my eyes at the moment.
I'm gonna pull up a visual. Hold on, I'll show you. All right.
Diving suit.
1800s diving suit. Here we go. So I don't know if they ever explain why Trip has one in his quarters, but it is interesting.
Well,
So
I thought it's something that he actually wore in the series.
Oh, okay. I haven't gotten to that episode yet.
No, I thought I don't remember him having a diving suit or something, but I could be wrong. So
he has a helmet that looks like this, kind of a slightly different version of it. Do you see this?
Oh yeah. So that's in Trip's quarter.
Something like that, and then you have the torchbearer Klingon. Torchbearer. Let's see if we can see his. See? So you have, wait, let me pull it.
Yeah. Kind of get it.
It's like
yeah.
a mono, you don't see two different eyes. You definitely only see like it's a mono kind of thing.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's very cool design again. But you only see it for a split second, and we never actually see him light the torch, which I think would have been a cool thing to see, is how the Kalis torch works.
But that wasn't the scene at the end of the episode
What's that?
when they lit up the torch.
I don't.
The big
You don't
flashing
actually.
lights.
No, it lights, but you don't actually.
Oh, but you don't see the.
You don't see them do it. I don't know. I don't know if that's important or not, but I
think they complemented Nemesis, because in Nemesis we didn't see the scimitar actually firing the beam, but we saw the whole process. In this case, we didn't see the process, but we saw the firing.
We saw the firing. It's true. And you bring up the scimitar. The Klingon Kalis's beacon looks like Romulan technology, not Klingon technology. As a matter of fact, like the Klingons look kind of like the Remans to me, just a little bit different.
Yeah, it has a certain vibe to it, I guess.
Not a very classic Klingon vibe to it, but yeah, I would agree. I did think that the makeup was, for what it is, if you can move past the sort of shock of what the Klingons look like right now, the makeup is actually pretty good. I noticed on a subsequent rewatching that like there's really subtle facial movements that you can see happening, like even with like their eyebrows and kind of like the expressions and things like that. I do think it is weird that the Klingons do sound like they have nasal problems. All of them talk like if they're talking through a mask, which kind of bothers me a little bit, but
well, they're kind of talking through a mask.
they are.
They're not real Klingons, No, I'm just joking. But yeah, I had this problem as well. We've been talking about with the show, and I told him like I didn't feel the Klingons talking in a classic Klingon way. I mean, they talking in Klingon. Obviously, that's not a question. But somehow, if I look up even the motion picture or Star Trek 5 or Star Trek 6 or any movies or episodes that actually they're talking in Klingon, you can feel this sort of more fluent, more Shakespearean way of talking Klingon. But in this case, it felt like they repeating words and they just reading the words from the teleprompter, which I'm sure they didn't, but it didn't feel, for me, it didn't feel natural as what it is. At least at the first 2 episodes.
You brought up Shakespeare. I did have a comment about the Klingons, at least on Takuvma's ship, the armor. It reminded me of very much of like, it's very ornate, like Elizabethan era kind of looking. You know, like if you're watching or Tudor era kind of.
Yeah.
You know, so
No, I get that. Yeah, I get that. It's intriguing.
So
the
that
whole
was interesting. It is intriguing.
Yeah.
You were talking about earlier that you really liked the scenes where there was a lot of Starfleet kind of procedure, and her opening log is actually very much kind of like that, with the how she's talking about surveying this relay that's gone out, and how like beautiful the binary stars are, and like all that kind of stuff. And that was actually very cool. And then everything goes downhill, and we plummet into war, of course.
Yeah, so it starts out really Star Trek-y from the Federation side, and then it just turns something else.
The telescope,
which is fine.
Right, that's true. The telescope was a really good touch. I like that she had that in her quarters. I also like some of the other things that you see, like the shadow puppet and things like that. And apparently there's books in her quarters that have all the original series titles on them. And I think the reaction of Twitter was pretty funny on that one, where people were like, is she a time traveler? Like, how does she have all these like mission logs from the future episodes of Star Trek? But I realize what it is an homage to the original series, of course. So
no,
we're taking
obviously
a little
it is.
Taking
if you don't really think about it that much, it's really just it's an Easter egg, nothing else.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
She obviously was reading books and everything. It just nice to have some stories, and you never know. They were stories before, so I mean, they were stories before if you think about it in a way.
That's true. True. The CBS service, I don't know how it is for you guys on Netflix, but I'm very jealous because I heard Netflix offers Klingon subtitles. Have you tried the Klingon subtitles?
What, for the entire show?
Yeah, you can turn on Klingon subtitles.
I know I can turn on, but I never tried it. But to be honest, I never really been interested on reading everything in Klingon. If I would know Klingon, I might give it a go.
But the point is, it's very cool. It's a very cool little touch, though.
No, it's nice. A Klingon dubbing would be fun.
I think that unfortunately,
and watching it subtitle.
Unfortunately, here in the U.S., we're experiencing some things. For example, you get to watch it on Netflix, so you've already paid for this service. So wonderful. And in Canada, they're watching it on the Space Network. Sorry.
Yeah.
But our experience here, Gary, is pretty horrible. CBS is making you pay $10 a month for no commercials. I turned on the subtitles because it was like late at night one time, and I wanted to like really read the dialogue, and none of the subtitles matched with what they were saying. It was like really, really terrible. Also, I've noticed the quality of the stream. Well, this is like really intense light coming into my face right now. It's actually
it says a torchbearer around or what?
What's that? It's the
torchbearer around.
It's the beacon of Kalos. Just
oh my god! Because if I look at the windows, I'm into darkness. But that's a different story.
We're a little bit closer now, though. I'm only 5 hours away from you.
Yeah, so it's like
9 hours, so it's not so bad.
Sure. No, it's not at all.
Not at all. Yeah. Also, the quality of the video. There's some static in the last couple of episodes, which I couldn't understand, and I didn't know if it was like intentional or not. But then I saw screenshots, and it's not intentional. So CBS, get your act together, please. Fix this horrible service that we're paying so much money for. It's like one of these Picard facepalm
moments.
Yeah. They mentioned a couple things in the episode that I thought were interesting. They haven't spoken hardly to the Klingons in 100 years. And and I don't really know enough about the post-Enterprise era, but I guess that's true or consistent with the lore. They mention a couple of colonies like Eagle 12 and the Gamma Hydra sector, if you remember what the Gamma Hydra sector was from.
Hydra. Hang on, that's. Oh yes, the Star Trek 2.
Yep.
Well, you actually mentioned the pink blood, and now we got to Gamma Hydra, which is Star Trek 2, and the funny thing about the whole Klingon purple blood or lavender blood plus Gamma Hydra plus Nick Meyer, who works actually as an executive in Star Trek Discovery. If he's not there, the purple blood is not purple. I have a strong feeling about that because if you look back to TNG, none of the Klingons had purple blood. If you look at the Voyager, none of them had. Well, we saw like 2 or 3 times Klingons in Voyager in the entirety of the show. Even in DS9, they never had purple or lavender blood. Just in Star Trek 2.
Yeah, Star Trek
Even
6.
in Enterprise.
Even it was Star Trek 6. That was
Star Trek 6, yes.
In Star Trek 6, it was very controversial because no one really liked it. They thought it looked like Pepto-Bismol, but if you look at, I'm just saying, it didn't look as light purple. It looked like really dark purple. So I guess Nick Meyer must have been like, Klingon's blood has to be purple. We're gonna have purple blood. So
at least when he's directing it, or he's or he's producing the show. But the funny thing is, if you remember the scene when Kuba being shot, the blood first came out as dark purple, and then we saw him lying in the floor, and it was actually red. So I don't know if it was. I
think it just depends on the lighting.
The whole show is dark, so I can get away with that. Yes.
We can't really tell. So yeah, it's true. What did you think of the Admiral Anderson?
He's can I say that four-letter word?
PG-13, but yeah, you could suggest it.
He was a DICK, I think.
You could say dick. He was a dick.
And the funny thing is, that I didn't really understand why he was blaming Michael and the captain of actually bothering a Klingon ship and destroying a Klingon, and just going there and just messing up with the Klingons, while they didn't know who they are. So what would you have done in the edge of the Federation space, and you see something that you don't even know, and you go and investigate, and you finally find out, oh, hang on, that's the enemy. So it's just like, okay, what would you do? But don't blame the others because they just found out what's happening there. And what happened there, basically in the Torchbearer, that was simply an accident, or not just an accident. It was really a self-defense from Michael's side, and the Admiral could have understood that, but he was kind of a
it was kind of a weird thing.
It's I don't think it was really reflected on positively, or not just positively. I don't think it was a really good decision to just tell them off right at the beginning, like, okay, what did you do, and you shouldn't interfere with other races. It's like, hang on. They came to us, not we did something wrong. We just went to investigate, and we found that they are the enemy, but they didn't see them for 100 years.
Right. And
who are you to come in here to blame us for something because of this?
True. I thought the Admiral was like not like a more you're right. There was like something about him that was, he's just basically a dick. So I agree with you on that one 100%. In Burnham's quarters when she's talking to Sarek. Oh, well, I guess before we talk about that, what do you think of these holograms that can walk around on your bridge and everything else, and what happens to those later on? Because we do see holograms in Enterprise. There's a few examples of holograms. And
yeah, but they all located to one specific area, a recreation deck.
Or wherever, and we later on, of course, we see the holodeck, which is a whole different thing completely. But it's also like in the holodeck. It isn't until Nemesis that we see this kind of holographic technology. Remember when?
Not even Nemesis, till Deep Space Nine.
No,
they being those holographic projectors actually being installed in the Defiant and in a few other starships as well as a prototype. So they've been just testing the technology in DS9.
Oh, that's funny. That's right. I forgot
In
about that
right after the
completely.
Dominion War, just in case if
That's
you know
right.
if one captain dies in a ship, then someone can take over the other ship as well by via holograms, and they can actually cooperate with two ships at the same time, which is cool. But for having it in Discovery, that feels a bit off. I kind
It's
of
way off.
it's way off, exactly.
Because
Obviously,
it's not just on the Discovery. The Shanzhou has it. You know, like you could
oh
see.
yeah, and the Shenzhou is supposed
Yeah,
to be
it's
a
like yeah.
good old ship, and I mean an old ship. And if we even go forward or backwards, no, forwards from this point, but backwards in our time period, the animated series had the first hologram, the
Oh,
holodeck
cool.
actually in the Practical Joker, the episode Practical Joker, when they went through in a nebula, and basically the Enterprise got a sort of alien entity, and the Enterprise became alive, and they started to entertain and make practical jokes on the crewmates, and they were in the holodeck. So they had a holodeck in the Enterprise, the original Enterprise,
Well,
which
the
the
crew of
Constitution. Yeah,
the crew of the NX-01 encounter that one race in Enterprise where Trip gets pregnant, and there's like a
yeah,
rudimentary holodeck in that one too. So yeah, we've had it before, but
yeah. So
only
we had,
like
but
yeah.
that was just projecting images and creating some virtual illusion, not having people walking around and talking and interacting with other people. That's way advanced for that sort of technology. That's more of a TNG or even past TNG era for me. That's anything that I have to say about it. It's off.
In the scene where Burnham is talking to Sarek, I did take note that in her quarters they had the old tape, those little tape things, just like in the original era. So I thought that was
yeah.
a nice little, nod to the correct era continuity and things like that.
Yeah.
And I thought
They
that
were
her furniture and her lighting did kind of look retro. It didn't look like,
It's like the modern retro, redesigned retro,
IKEA
redesigned
retro. Let's see what else is here on my notes. Hold on one second.
All right.
I have an interruption here. Hang on.
How's Space Cat, by the way?
He's very good. He's here. He's checking. That's what the interruption was. Okay, so back. What else? Oh, in my notes, who was right in this situation? Burnham was so crazy bent on her idea that. What do you think would have happened if they fired first?
Well, I think I don't know what to think.
Let's just imagine that they fired first. What would have? What do you think the outcome would have been?
Well, having while they were okay, the question is while they were just two of them, or the 24 Klingon ship plus the Shenzhou.
When it's just the two of them.
Well, just the two of them.
Before the beacon of Kayla.
It's intriguing. I was thinking about that because Michael had this conversation about the Klingons and with Sarek about the Klingons, how they defeated the Klingons and how they actually got respect. Obviously, the Klingon is a warrior race, and sometimes they don't react on diplomacy. And if they would have done that, they might would have succeeded. But on the other note, and I think Sarek actually said that it might work for us Vulcans, but it might not gonna work for you. It's like it's a pretty simple idea. But if I start a diet and it works for me, and I give the advice to you, and you start it, and you will gain weight instead of losing weight, then that's not really good. But for me, it was working. So whatever happens to work for other races, an interaction with two different races might not gonna affect the same way on others, because even the Klingons could have said, like, okay, well, the pointier bastards, they got away with it, but you're different.
Oh, look, there's my father in the background.
Oh, hello.
I guess it's almost time for bed here, so we're gonna have to probably wrap it up pretty soon.
Okay.
But anyways, I guess we could have a continuation later, but
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's,
I didn't realize it's like 6 o'clock here. I don't have Starfleet Boy does not have his own quarters at the moment, so I'm borrowing my parents' luxurious quarters for recording the series. So before we wrap it up, though, what I wanted to mention was I guess in the scene when the fleet arrives, what a fun little thing for me was the names of the various starships. There was the Clark, the Shran, the T'Planahath, which is the matron of Vulcan philosophy, the Kerala, the Sioux, the Ride named after Sally Ride, the astronaut, and the Earhart, the Dana, the Edison, and the Jaeger, and then of course the Europa. So that was a cool detail that he actually names every single ship that arrives there. And unfortunately, none of them really survive, which means it was a pretty bloody battle. And it's pretty reflective in the episode. They actually do show, I think, a good amount of destruction. And the space battles were interesting. One thing I didn't like is that I couldn't really tell where the phaser banks were, or like the phaser turrets or anything like that. Again, there were no real close-ups of that. There was one nice close-up of the main the ship Takuvma's that looked like what are the Klingon beasts that they eat and also keep as pets called? Targs.
Yeah.
It looked like a targ head. Like, it was kind of cool. It had like teeth and things like that where the main bridge was. So that was really interesting. And then let's see what else. That was really sad when Ensign Connor is disoriented and goes into the brig, and I thought that was a really well written and touching scene. But it was also kind of interesting. I thought that they made such a big deal about like the cast and like introducing them, and then all of a sudden they're half of
they
them
just kill half of them.
It's like, but it's kind of like,
And they continue doing it in the following episode. Sorry, spoiler alert, but gosh.
So you can't really get attached to anyone except for Burnham. What do you think of the difference? This is the first show where we don't really have an ensemble cast focus. The focus is almost entirely on one character. What do you think of that?
No, I like it. I like this aspect as well. I mean, this is a really different direction. Obviously, it's not like having a triumvirate, trio on the focus like Kirk, Bones, and Spock, or even Data and Captain Picard. There's not such a thing as having the whole crew there, but it's sort of everyone has their own story. Although I don't think Discovery will necessarily do something different, because it does feel like Burnham gets more exposure in the story, but we still get different bits and pieces from other characters as well. I mean, definitely we got to know more about Saru, we got to know more about Lorca, we got to know more about briefly Captain Giorgio. So we get all the characters at the same time. We get the ship, but we getting the main interest basically from Michael. So it's different, but it's not as different that everyone thought about it. So it's like it's kind of familiar but different, but it's still familiar. I know it's wibbly.
That's true.
But I think that has a similarity between Discovery has a similarity with the other Star Trek series. It's not necessarily just focuses on one person. It focuses on her journey and her dealing with the grief and everything, and what the mistake that she did, plus her Vulcan side as well. But it does have a connection with the other crew members as well. So it really brings the whole thing together.
I wonder if CBS is looking at the success of Star Trek Discovery as a way to gauge whether or not to launch a new Star Trek show that is Enterprise focused. I wonder if Star Trek isn't going in a similar direction as Star Wars, where you have the main franchise, the story of the Skywalkers, and then the anthology films like Rogue One. And I'm kind of looking at Star Trek Discovery as like a Rogue One of Star Trek in a way, because there's no, it's kind of like how Voyager and DS9 were, but they were still very ensemble cast. But this is kind of, it reminds me of like what Rogue One was, which is basically, a side story that if it never got told, it would have been okay. But the fact that it got told and told so well, good job. Like stuff like that. So maybe in the future, and there's a rumor that Nick Mayer is involved with some kind of other Star Trek project, but maybe in the future we'll get a show that takes place post Voyager era, and we'll see the next Enterprise and the next Enterprise crew and stuff like that.
Here's some rumor about that.
Ooh. share. We don't mind rumors on here either.
It's merely a rumor, and obviously nothing written in stones or something. But I heard he's working on a Khan miniseries.
A what?
A Khan miniseries.
Oh, interesting. But that would still be an anthology. It still wouldn't be necessarily,
Yeah,
the main
I don't.
thing.
If that's true, I don't know what to think about it.
It's intriguing, I'll say that. What did you think of the scene in the brig where Michael is able to speak to Sarek through this sort of weird Katra messaging thing? And
that does leave a couple of questions because first of all, they first got introduced the Katra in Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, when Spock downloads his Katra to Dr. McCoy, and his soul basically lives on Dr. McCoy's body. But this level, but when we talked about this with Sean as well, they might just have a different sort of technique that we never heard before, so they can actually share their Katra with someone, and they have this connection. But it did feel a bit far-fetched of he's being aware of everything that's happening on the ship, while the colony or whatever he is just light years away from the edge of the Federation space. So it felt a bit far-fetched, but there's many things that we don't know about them. So at the moment, I'm okay with it.
It's a little sad because it probably means that this is why Sarek has the Bendai syndrome. Remember in TNG he gets the brain disease, and in this episode he says, "Oh, I can communicate with you through my Katra," but it comes at great physical cost. So maybe the great physical cost is that later on in Next Generation he acquires this rare syndrome, the Bendai syndrome, where his mind is basically unraveling. So thanks a lot, Michael Burnham.
But maybe that's the cost, you never know.
It would have been just fine with me though if that was her imagination. Like maybe she has conversations with Sarek in her imagination, which would have been cool as well. So we have this like really big buildup with Takuvma, and he's known as Takuvma the Unforgettable and all this stuff, yet he is pretty much forgotten and killed in the very first episode. So we get two interesting. It's like, so it's like a really interesting way.
All the big casting and all the big announcement and all the Twitter feed and everything from the cast. I remember Chris Obi tweeting almost every week, like, "Yeah, it's Chris Obi here," and then you died after the first episode.
No, I know it was. What? It was pretty.
What?
What did you think of the scene where Michael Burnham is bantering with the computer and reasoning with it to let her basically be released from prison, from the brig, and then launched back into the ship?
That's very dangerous.
What do you think?
Because if that's the case, they can play with the computer all the time, and if she could have done it and she did it, there's no way on Earth or in space that Khan wouldn't be able to do it, or Spock wouldn't be able to do it. And I remember Spock said even once in Star Trek 5, in the new brig is actually well equipped, so I wasn't able to break out from it.
Well, but
he's pretty clever.
I know that's in Star Trek 5, so maybe there are flaws, but I think that there have been examples. Were you who mentioned it? Maybe you're someone that in the animated series or in the original series at some point, humans have been able to trick computers in a sense by using logic and reasoning as a way to get what they want. So,
but the thing is, we didn't see any highly sophisticated computers steal the M5.
That's true.
And the M5 was the actually the computer that Daystrom was actually reasoning with. So that was the first computer that we've seen, and that's in the future. So, or maybe that's a prototype. But then the Shenzhou is an old ship, so
It's true, and
it doesn't really fit.
she's also kind of like messing with something interesting. She's called, you know, the computer has ethical protocols, and so she's trying to get the computer to realize that it's okay because of the ethical protocols. But I thought it was an interesting scene. I don't know. Again, I kind of agree with you. I don't know how realistic it is or whether it's far fetched, but I thought it was a fun little
No, it was fun. It was
scene.
like
Yeah.
basically she's arguing with the computer, like, and it was sorry, but I have to do this. Honestly, I just feel. Where's my thing? Ah, there you go. Hello, computer.
That's true. Let's see. What else can we talk about? I guess we've covered everything, and now it's time to come to our rating.
Oh, gosh.
In our very long discussion of the first two episodes here. Shall I go first, Gary?
Please.
Are we gonna do one rating for both episodes or separate ratings for each episode?
I don't know. Well, in my eyes, both the two episodes is basically a double parter, so
Okay.
I would count them as one episode. But that's how I count them.
I would say that I give the episodes. Let's do it separate and combined. So separately, I would give the Vulcan Hello and 7.5, and I would give the Battle of the Binary Stars a 7. So combined, they're somewhere around 7.
I think. Yeah, I don't think I would be able to give any higher on that, but I'm not gonna give any lower than that. So I'm
You're
gonna
gonna
go
agree
with
with
your
so the
score.
7.
Yeah,
So there it is.
7.
The official Starfleet Boy casual and informal discussion reaction to the first two episodes. Now, where do you rank it as far as opening episodes go for all of the Star Trek series so far? Like, where does it fall for you?
Is that a serious question? I don't know. I don't know.
So
I mean,
you have the original series. Let's not count the original series. Let's start with
yeah, because you have to opening. You have the cage and you have the When No Man Has Gone Before, or the Man Trap, whichever.
Let's put that in a hallowed, like a holy place that
the original series is the base anyway, so it's
so
fine.
it's like
Let's just not count that.
So we have the Next Generation, DS9, Voyager,
And Enterprise,
and Enterprise, and now Star Trek Discovery. So that's 5. It can go 1 through 5.
Do I have to rate all of them?
No, you just tell us where Discovery is on 1 through 5.
Probably in the bottom, in the 5th.
I have to say that Voyager might be my least favorite, so I'm gonna give this one a 4.
Wow.
Because I don't remember liking the Voyager premiere very much at all. So Discovery at least did that for me. So it's a 4.
I actually haven't thought about this. Ranking the pilots, but am I gonna rank the pilots in one of my videos for the next couple of weeks?
I'll be excited to see that. That's very cool.
Yeah, but yeah. It's actually I will leave that for for the video then.
So
that's an interesting thought. Thank you very much for the recommendation.
I love that. One last question before we go. Speculation about where the show's heading. Just real, like, your raw thoughts. Like, where do you think all of this is going to go?
It's really interesting because I think, everyone kind of brags about the whole it's too dark and it's too not really, it's not at all Star Trek that we knew, which is fine. And it's a different story, which I totally accept, and I in a certain level I do enjoy. But I think it's going to get. That's what I think based on the first 4 episodes. I think it's going to get to the point when we will end up having a sort of TOS TNG era feel to the show. It doesn't, and don't talk about looks or something because that can end up somewhere else. But the feel might gonna end up as TOS, so it will be more optimistic. But it really reflects on our life as well and our time, because we are living in a pretty dark age in a sense of, there's lots of things going on in politics and in terms of war zone and something. So it really resonates in the current situation. And how do you feel when you need a change? You have to slap yourself in a very deepest place in your life, and then you just realize, okay, I can't bear with this. So you have to work your way, towards the light. And I think Discovery at this point starts with the very darkest possible scenario as it can be, and it will work towards to the light. But eventually, we'll end up in TOS and TNG era. That's what I think.
Very logical. I like that. I think it's all going to be a dream, like Alice in Wonderland, and like idea further and further, and we're like going deeper into the rabbit hole, and then we'll find out that, oh, there's like an alternate universe or something like that, or something along those lines. But I also agree,
universe.
right? But I also agree that the show will get better in terms of more hopeful as we get closer to the end of the Klingon War story. Very cool. Well, I was very happy to talk to you today, and it was nice to see you again after so long. It's been a very, very long time.
Oh yeah, it's been a very long time. Exactly.
It's been a long time.
Deal I haven't talked to you before.
It's been a long time, and my time is finally here. I will see my dream come alive. Or is it come alive in life? I will touch the stars, and they're not gonna hold me back no more. I forget the words, but anyways, live long and prosper, my friend.
Live long and prosper.
Whoa, that's a cool one. All right, au revoir. See you next time.
See you.